Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Kashif Booth podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with a guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs, the lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is the screenwriter himself, James Barber, who is best known for his web series Flatshare. Welcome to the show, James.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, it's good to have you on the show. And it's so funny because I was thinking on the way here, we've known each other for a long time. Because I remember we first met, I think it was at a rain dance event.
Yeah.
And it was like I think it was like, I don't know if they were talking about their film school or something. Mm-hmm. And then you just met during networking. And then I remember I saw you a few months later at Kojo's Platforms event. What was it called at the time? Because you know it's Black Magic Network now.
Oh, yeah.
It was called something.
It was called something else, wasn't it?
I don't know. It was something. Yeah. Voices of Color. I don't know, but it was something. Yeah, and I remember seeing you there, and I was like,
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that was, interesting.
Yeah, and then
there was an actress there as well.
Yes,
she was in I May Destroy You.
Yeah, she's doing really well now. Really well. Can't remember what her name is, but yeah, she's doing amazing. But yeah, so
up to that.
Yeah. See, I have her on Instagram as well. You know, I'm like,
what's the name escapes me, but
anyway, exactly. But I remember consistently because you were always talking about Flatshare. Like when I first met you, you were trying to get people to do Flatshare, and that was like 2017.
Yes.
And then and you just were on it, and then I remember I think I might have saw you again another time. No, the next time I saw you, you had shot it, and it was at Leville TV, and they were screening it, and I was like, oh wow, I remember this. It was so good. And then you screened it, and I was like, this is amazing. So. So tell us about
the whole experience, I must say.
Exactly. So tell us about the whole, like, where did it start? Like, because Flatshare took ages to get from, script to screen. So what was the process? How did you come up with it and stuff?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was a very long process. It took about 3 years to make. Like a friend of mine approached me and he was like, I want to do a web series. And at the time I was sort of doing a very boring 9 to 5 basically. And I just felt like I had no creative outlet. So I think, when he approached me, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like a great idea. But like when we started working together, we sort of realized, okay, there are some creative differences. And the sort of show he had in mind, what I had in mind was very different. So, I sort of went off, I started developing the script. But when I say developing, like I'd never written a script before. I was literally writing it all in my notes on my phone. Didn't know what the process was. I was completely 100% naive about what I was getting myself into. I had no idea. I mean, I'd worked in television before, so I'd worked at the BBC for a couple of years. That was like my first kind of big job coming out of uni. Working sort of for children's television, but I hadn't worked in that side in terms of developing a show from scratch. So yeah, it was like stepping into the wilderness. Literally starting from scratch. Sort of building a creative team around me. Having lots of different people. So I had different directors, different producers, different actors. There was a point in time where it kind of all fell apart, and I literally was Flatshare. Like it was literally holding it by a shoe string, and yeah, it was really challenging. We did a crowdfunding campaign, and Grant Taylor, who's an amazing director, came on board, and that was kind of when things started to shift and it really started to come together. And yeah, we shot it in I think 2018 and went through a year of post-production, color grading, getting the sound recording good and all that, and then it came out 2019.
Wow, that is such a long process. And I understand because it took 4 years for me to release my final web series. But I mean, I did 4, which is still crazy. But but just to hear your journey through that I can relate 100% because web series is no joke. And the thing is, it came out great. Like the production quality was there, the directing, the writing, the performances from the actors were all there. So it definitely was worth it in the end. So when you finally were able to shoot, What was that process like? How did you fund it? Because you said crowdfunding, but what was your budget? What was that whole kind of thing like? Did you produce it as well, or did you have a
Yeah,
producer?
so so I had a producer, but I did end up producing the last few episodes. And that was an interesting experience because coming into it, I was like, oh, I'm just a writer. I'm just going to be the writer. But when you do a web series, you end up doing a whole lot more than, do you know what I
Yes.
mean, than what you sort of anticipated. And, even the set design, a lot of the props in there are my things and my mum's. My mum loaned me quite a few things, and I would give that to the set designer. So I kind of got into a lot of different areas in terms of the production and then also the producing and managing the budget. When we did the crowdfunding campaign, it was the money we raised was just enough to shoot the pilot episode.
Wow. Been there,
Uh,
literally,
yeah.
literally just been there. I only could afford to make my pilot episode, and that was it.
Right, right. But I promised that I was going to do more episodes. I'd written more, and I really, really wanted to shoot at least. Well, originally it was 6 episodes. We got it down to 4, and I funded the rest myself. And I didn't have all the money at the time. I remember my granny gave me a little bit of money
Wow.
as well, and that literally allowed me to shoot the last episode. um, I always had just about enough to get me through, you know, and yeah, that's what when I was talking about just kind of going into the unknown, and I mean sometimes literally I'd turn to my like producer or director, whoever I was working with at the time, and be like, okay, how are we gonna get from A to B and from C to D, and sometimes they'll look at me and be like, I'm not sure, but we're just gonna just have to risk it and see what happens. But yeah, it was a really kind of long process, and funding it and making sure that we had like top quality, because the quality was just really important to me. So there were things that I didn't compromise on, particularly like the sound, having a really amazing sound recordist. I got like an amazing DOP, and like set designer, and they've all gone on to like really big things since Flatshare. And I think it paid off in terms of, making sure that I had that top quality, because, when people watch it, even though we shot it on a budget, it looks like it could be on television. And it ended up being on television last year, which, we'll probably get to. But yeah.
Amazing. So with Flatshare, it does address a lot of themes, in terms of living in a flat with, roommates. It addresses gentrification. It addresses chemsex parties.
Yes.
Real adult, mature themes. So what was the message behind Flatshare? What was it you wanted the audience to gain from it?
I think, when I think about even the lead up to actually even making Flatshare, writing it, I got into photography quite heavily. Like I got a Canon camera and I was just taking photographs all the time. Like I remember when it was a whole kind of Black Lives Matter, when it first kind of surfaced around 2015, and I'd be there at the marches with my camera taking all these kind of, pictures of what was happening and really capturing that, and going to like gay pride and like protests around discrimination, against LGBT people. And I think I was just documenting a lot of things that I just felt quite passionate about. And I think when I started to write Flatshare, all of those things came through in the script. So when I scroll back through my Instagram, I'm like, oh, this was like what it was building up to, was me writing Flatshare. And I think Flatshare for me, even though it's a comedy drama, it's obviously fictional, it was autobiographical as well at the same time, because this is kind of going back before there was Insecure and Pose, like in terms of when I first started writing it. When, in terms of the whole process of making it, that's when these shows started to crop up. So initially, I just wanted to make a show that where I could see myself, because I think, we can talk about, the lack of representation and all those things, which is, very important. But, you can, there's so much that we can do now, and we don't have to rely on a big, corporate entity or big broadcaster to create the kind of representation that we want to see. So for me, it was about taking the power back and being like, I'm just going to create this show for myself. I'm going to create the kind of characters that I want to see, and I'm going to talk about what I feel passionate about. Like I grew up in Peckham. My granny still lives there. And I was seeing the area change massively, and I was angry about it, to be honest. Just in terms of just seeing a lot of people being pushed out of the area, and just looking at gentrification as, okay, I see how it's, bringing in new business, and, we've got all these cool places now. You can go out clubbing, all these bars, but who's actually really benefiting from it on a financial level? So that sort of came into just from my observations and my experience of living in the area as well. Again, like as a black gay man as well, it was really important to have a character, the main character, who's a kind of, black queer character who's trying to find himself, who's experiencing a lot of racism as well on the gay scene, which is a topic I really wanted to talk about. And his experience of kind of going to this chemsex party, and a lot of the racism that he experiences there. So yeah, it was very autobiographical, and I was writing from a place of truth, and I think that's why it resonated with people.
That's really good to hear. And I think some people listening don't know what a chem sex party is. So can you explain what that is and why it was such an important piece to feature in the series? Because I remember looking at the YouTube numbers, and that had the most views.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, and I was just like, wow, because I've heard of this through passing, or I've heard of these type of parties, but then just to kind of see a visual representation, which was very PG,
Yes.
it still was very shocking, and I learned a lot from watching it. So yeah, please tell us what goes down.
If you're a gay man and you're on Grindr or any of those hookup apps, you're probably at some point you're going to get invited to one of those parties, and there are code words for it. It's sort of, they sort of dress it up, but it's basically, sort of gay men coming together, usually during the weekend. They're sort of sex parties, basically, that involves lots of drugs. But, there are many cases where, men have, gotten really hooked on those drugs, and it goes beyond Saturday and Sunday or just the weekend, and it becomes a lifestyle. And, there are men that have overdosed and died, and it, had that completely kind of ruin their life. So I was quite careful in terms of how I did it, because I didn't want it to be preachy in terms of don't do chemsex, because there are some people that do it and they have their experiences and they go back to their 9 to 5 jobs, and so everyone has different experiences, and I think that's why when you watch Flatshare, it was really focusing on Omar and Tom, and Omar's experience of being the only black person in that space, and then Tom, who was in a sort of emotionally and physically abusive relationship with another man, which I thought was quite interesting, because you don't see that often. It's just usually a man and a woman, but actually, same-sex relationships can also be abusive, physically or emotionally. So it was kind of more exploring that. But it was interesting because at the time, no one was really talking about it. I'd seen a documentary that Vice had done about chemsex, which blew my mind. I was just like, wow, this is really dark. And I can see why a lot of gay men have gravitated towards it, because a lot of gay bars and clubs have shut down. You go to Soho now, and I was in Soho the other day, and it's just like so many of our bars and spaces that are not just bars and clubs to have a good time, but it's a place for you to go to feel a sense of community, a sense of belonging. A lot of them are shut, and they've shut because of Grindr, because a lot of guys now are not going out in the same way. They're hooking up with each other and meeting each other online. So a lot of the bars now have shut down, and in the absence of having those spaces, you get chemsex parties and these other spaces where you would experience the same thing you would if you were in a gay bar, but it's in people's homes with lots of drugs that are very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So, yeah, so it's an interesting time.
Very interesting. I mean, I think it's great that you address that within your series, because people need to know these different complex stories, diverse stories, really talking about issues or just different topics what other people can relate to. And I think that was great about Flatshare, because you pulled from every commissioner's dream, where it ticks all the boxes, but it's done in a way where actually people can see themselves represented, and it actually came together in a way where it seemed authentic. And that was what it was, because it was autobiographical. I feel like that helped it a lot more. It wasn't just putting a group of writers in there who don't really know, or all from different backgrounds, and trying to make it flow. If you're a person who's being able to mix with different groups of people and have authentic relationships with people, that's when it helps. Not just you putting a group of people together and thinking, okay, right. Because not all the time it can work, because you need to make sure that how would these characters in real life actually bond and mesh well together, because not every flat share situation is nice. You got some roommates who you really don't want to talk to ever. You just passing through the night. Okay. So I totally understand that. So so after Flatshare came out and stuff like that, what happened next? Because it was, to me, it was anticipated, because I had met you so many times and I wanted to see it. So what happened next after that?
What was interesting, because when it came out, the big question everyone was saying, when's the next season coming? When's the next season coming? And that was because it basically ended on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
And it's always kind of been a thing of like, I wonder what would happen, like if we could see what happened to them after they got dashed out of the kind of place where they were living. Yeah, I mean, basically what happened is it came out, we did lots of screenings, lots of Q&As, it got nominated for quite a few awards. London Live picked it up last year, and so it was shown on television as a pilot episode sort of last autumn, and it was shown again this year. So that was amazing. I think basically what happened for me personally, because remember, like I'd given like 3 years of like my life to this. So when the whole experience was done, I was drained.
Oh, I understand.
And also when a show comes out, I was doing all the marketing. So doing all of this, all the social media, and obviously getting it into all these festivals, like that takes a lot of time
and money.
And money, right? So I was exasperated, and I didn't really have any kind of creative juices to be like, okay, I'm going to write this next thing.
I understand.
I needed to take some time for me.
No, I totally understand. Totally. After I did my last web series, I was burnt out. And that week I shot my web series. I shot a film earlier in the week. I did a whole episode on that, shooting 2 projects in 1 week. Week from hell.
Wow.
The listeners have heard me say already so many times how I almost swung on people. Yes, because people were driving me mad. So I understand it drains the life out of you, because it's already hard putting a project together. But when it's your own money or limited budget, it's just 10 times even more stress and pressure. So you just want to walk away. You don't want to do anything. And I get that. So okay. So you had your Zen
Yeah, I
period.
did, but
And
also
then,
I forgot to mention that around that time as well, I started pitching it
oh, amazing.
to broadcasters. So ITV watched it and they,
Oh,
really
great.
liked it, and BBC, liked it, but it didn't get picked up. Do you know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
even that was just like, oh, because in a lot of ways it was quite ambitious because this is my first project. Do you
Not
know what I mean?
necessarily. Not
Yeah.
necess- I don't. I don't think it's too ambitious because when I see people like Lena Dunham and the guys who created
Right.
Game of Thrones,
Right.
they basically had no experience and they just got a deal straight away. So it's not ambitious. I feel like as black people, we need to be more ambitious.
Ambitious.
Think
Right.
like the straight white men and women. But I don't
Exactly.
wait. I don't know what Lena Dunham is. Is she queer?
No, I don't know if she's queer, but she's white.
Oh, okay. No, I know that, but I didn't know she was queer. I don't want to
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but I get going. But I just feel like no, it should. You should accept your ambitions and go get in those rooms.
Exactly. So yeah, so I was just pitching to all these broadcasters, and like when you hear lots of no's, it was just like, I think. Yeah, again, that sort of added to the kind of the tiredness and just like, ugh, okay, maybe it's time now to kind of move on and or be like, okay, how can I take this experience and get me to the next level? And when I was pitching to all these broadcasters, one of the big thing that kept coming up was, "Oh, do you have an agent?" And I didn't have an agent at the time, and it was just like, oh, if I just had an agent, this door would open and that door would open, and that was kind of what I based a lot of it on as well, in terms of them saying no, because it basically it's like having that blue tick.
Yeah. That's why my red receipts are off because I don't
Yeah,
have time for that anxiety. So yeah.
And I felt at the time that I just needed that blue tick. So yeah, I just started writing to lots of like agents, be like, look, I've done this web series. We were London Live talking, and like you're talking about the show and on this radio show, and it got this amount of publicity. And I just felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall, to be honest. And it took me a whole year to get an agent. And literally, I met my agent at a party, and it was so funny because like it was like a Freddie Mercury theme party, so we all dressed as like all the guys were dressed up as Freddie Mercury, and
Interesting.
yeah, it was.
I mean,
an
that's not my
interesting.
kind of party. So.
I was
Sorry.
I was a black Freddie Mercury with my moustache.
You guys can't see, but I'm staring at James like, what? Not me. I can't imagine that.
Okay. But yeah, it was a fun night. We were taking like pictures in the photo booth, but I was also there to network because the person whose party it was an agent.
Oh, amazing.
So the room was basically just filled with agents, and I happened to meet my agent there. And what's so funny? It took a whole year for me to actually hear back from my agent. A whole year.
Wow.
So when she actually emailed me, I was like, what? Like, that was a whole year ago. Do you know what I mean? But it was perfect timing because by that point, I had a writing partner. But basically, I had like a couple of scripts by that point, other scripts, so that really kind of showcased where I was at that time.
Okay. That's really good to hear because it's so hard to get an agent. And I know so many people who've been in the room and then they got an agent afterwards, So, because agents, from what I've heard, because I don't have an agent, never had an agent. So, it's just so hard to get in the rooms with them. And it's like, you need to be creating some sort of buzz for them to come to you anyway. So, you got your agent. That's the main thing. So I know that once you did get your agent, you then got optioned with the production company to write a pilot. So can you explain what that means to get optioned by a production company to write a pilot? What's the whole process like and where did it get you?
So just just before that as well. So when I got signed, basically you get sent, to do meetings with different producers, and you pitch ideas. And so yeah, me and my writing partner, we were just pitching, and we
So your writing partner got signed as well.
yeah, so
Okay.
we both got signed, sort of as a writing duo, and he knew a producer, who was, quite, talented and stuff, and she'd heard about some stuff, the stuff we were writing, and she read one of our scripts, and we had an idea of what we wanted to pitch to her, and we literally just pitched her like a throwaway idea that
Okay.
we thought, oh, she's probably not going to be interested in that. And she absolutely loved it and just was like, really latched onto it. And then we started to develop it. So we didn't even have the script as well at the
Wow.
time. So it was, we started developing a treatment for it first, really. So, and then basically the producer then took that to her boss, who was like, yeah, okay, I like this idea. I like the world that they're creating, the characters, the plot. And then once we kind of got a green light on that, we signed a contract. So basically, it gives them the rights over that idea for a certain amount of time. For us, it was 12 months. So that basically meant that we couldn't pitch it to other production companies. Yeah, and I remember at the time there was a producer who's quite a notable producer, and I was like, that would be perfect for her, like, because yeah, but we had to keep it with that production company, so so we signed that contract. It was the first time, obviously, we both kind of had been in that experience, and definitely spent a long time with our agent going over all the T's and C's and making sure that everything was right in terms of money and all those
That's what I was about
things.
to ask you. Were you paid your
Yeah.
worth?
Yes and no. To a degree,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, when you're a new writer, it's not the same as Shonda Rhimes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
Of
going to
course,
be
of
Shonda
course,
Rhimes
of course.
money.
Okay.
So as a new writer, you're not going to get paid loads and loads, but for kind of
Was it
fresh
five
writers,
digits or 4 digits?
4 digits.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
And
just have to be clear, because people might think, what, he got paid like 3 digits? Like, so, okay.
yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
cool, cool.
So so basically, signed that, and then we started to sort of write the script, and it's a
So how long did
really
you write the
long
script
process.
for?
It's a really long
Okay.
process. So you're looking at, for us, it was about 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started around springtime and finished around in summer. It was a long period, and a lot of kind of going back and forth, trying to, because basically when you're writing that script, you want the producers to be happy, because their bosses also need to be happy with that script, and they also need to feel confident that they can go to the top broadcasters and say, look, we've got this amazing script, you guys need to commission this. So but what we want in terms of as writers, what you know sometimes what we think is good and what we think should go in the script, what really needs to be in there, is sometimes very different to what the producer has in mind. So there's a lot of negotiation and trying to come to a middle ground where you both can be happy with what you've produced.
So when you are in that process and working with a producer, would you say there's any risk factor or risk management within the process? Are they very safe?
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. I like this. Short and sweet, because I'm not going to press too for much. Nobody's trying to get blackballed. So okay, interesting. Okay, so 4 or 5 months it took you to write the script. During that time, were you still working full time, or were you able to quit your job and just focus on the script? What was that
Yeah,
like?
so I was still working, and that was, to be honest, it was crazy
I can imagine.
because it was I was still working full time, and trying to manage having a TV option deal, and this is the case for most fresh writers in the game who get a TV option deal. You still at your 9 to 5, because that TV option deal, that's not going to pay your rent for the next 5 months. Um, for however long you're developing it. Because even though, let's say for me, developing that whole experience was probably about 6 months. You can be in development for years. Do you know what I mean? Like it can be and then not only be in development for years, but it might never see the light of day as well. So, there's all of those things. But I had to hold down my 9 to 5, and it was really, really difficult. And if I'm being honest, like I got quite like depressed about it, and I got into a really, really dark place because I just didn't feel I had enough time to fully devote myself to the whole TV option deal. And luckily I had like a writing partner where we could sort of develop it together. And if I was a bit too stressed or had too much on my plate, he would take on some. But I think that definitely taught me the importance of really having a job where it doesn't drain you, and it allows room and space for you to do your other stuff. So that was a big lesson. And I think the whole TV option experience, I think, what it definitely taught me is the importance of really sticking to your guns about certain things, following your instincts. Because, when it started to go out to the big broadcasters, it was sort of like, when we started to get some of the notes back in terms of why it wasn't going to get picked up, we were like, oh, okay, yeah.
Interesting. So that's what I was going to ask you. What was it like being in those rooms pitching? Were you in the rooms, or was it just the producers?
It was just the producer.
Interesting. So I remember you telling me the plot of it to a certain degree. It was about a black family, in the UK. Were they affluent, or was it? Okay, so the affluent. So how can I put this? Were the producers diverse? Were they of the community? How did they really relate to the themes and the cultural backgrounds within the show?
So do you mean the producer I was working
Yeah.
with? They weren't diverse.
Okay.
In terms of coming from a sort of that background. And sometimes, that is an interesting experience. Because, people definitely want diversity, and that they know that there's definitely a need to have more black writers tell, their own stories and to get those more on screen. But, someone else's definition of blackness and how they see it is sometimes very different from how we see it. And again, sort of trying to negotiate that and find a middle ground around that can be very challenging. I think particularly if you're not as established, and, we, at the time as well, there's also other shows that are being pitched and other shows that have been picked up and commissioned. And
Which were similar, do you mean?
Yeah, and sometimes, if you get something if there is something similar and it's got an all-black cast.
But I feel like that's very UK. Like
absolutely.
A couple of weeks ago, I had my former mentee on, and he works in feature film development. And I asked him that question: is that the case that within the UK? Because that's how it seems. Within the UK, if they find out that somebody else is producing the same thing or similar, they're like, okay, we have to kill this idea. And I think that's a case of just how much the industry actually invests in scripted TV or films in this country. I think that's what it is, because they just will have one type of show on the air at all times. Now, I personally feel like it's different for shows which are about people of color, because when you look at ITV, for example, there's a lot of crime TV dramas which are on repeat. Don't get me wrong. Right. Some of these dramas, they're amazing, but it's the same thing. Like some murder mystery, some child's missing, some girl got raped, whatever. Like it's a occurring thing. But when it comes to people of color, why is it that we can't see multiple shows of the same type of thing? And that's what's great about the American market is because there's so many different markets. The Black Hollywood market is so huge in America, so they don't even really necessarily need to go to like the main broadcasters like ABC, NBC. There's so many different platforms now. They've got, what is it? There's All Black, which is this streaming platform. There's loads of black content on there right now. So it's once I think the UK eventually does catch up, but I don't think it's about even catching up. I feel like it's when all these investors actually see the value in diverse content and how they actually can make money from it, then that's when there'll be more of it. So that's what I've noticed from my experience definitely as a producer, loads of panels I've been on with other writers and stuff like that, because you get asked these questions a lot, and the non-black people are kind of stuttering, and they're all like, "Oh, you should write your character with no color and this and that," and I let them chat. Then I talk and I give the real. I don't need to sugarcoat anything. I'm basically saying that this is the market and this is how it's going to be. So yeah, so it's about, and I think we are at a disadvantage as people of color because our ideas have to be exceptional, or they have to be in a way where it can, a lot of people of color's experience in the UK gets grouped as one. So we can have a black lead, but the best friend has to be Asian, or and that's how it is. And I think once we get past that, then there'll be change. And I think because of some of the stuff what we both know are in development, once that comes out, I'm looking forward to seeing what the reaction will be and see what will happen within the UK industry following on from that. So yeah. So back to your pitching. So when you were pitching, and unfortunately I remember you saying to me it didn't get picked up. What was that like? That you constantly being told these notes and saying, okay, sigh, or like there's something similar going on or something like that. What was that for you, like to hear those notes back, to probably get those notes back and be like, see, I told you I was right? Or what was it like to receive that, okay, something else is being done, so my show can't go anywhere? What was that like for you?
Yeah. I think there was some initial disappointment, but I think after like the first couple of notes, it's like, okay,
Damn.
we see where this is going. Because
Okay.
actually the notes were very similar
Interesting.
across the board.
That's very interesting.
And again, it was sort of like if we stuck to the original concept. So again, the lesson was, really stick to your guns, and also as well, I think now, having gone through that experience, I'm thinking a lot more about, when you're developing an idea, being a lot more conscious about who you're developing it with, and making sure that it's in the right hands. So there were lots of lessons that we learned, but also as well, again, when you're kind of getting into this industry, like what people are also looking for is credits.
Yes.
They want to see sometimes that you've written on, quite a few other TV shows.
Yeah. Broadcasting credits are very important.
They are.
Yeah, that's big when it comes to like getting in certain spaces and getting certain money. So, yeah.
So, that sort of has been quite a big focus for me this year in terms of like getting myself into certain writers' rooms on certain shows, because that's really the best way to get your own show.
Well, I'm wishing you the best. To quote Issa Rae, I'm rooting for everybody black.
Yeah,
So
me too.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you have next and coming up.
Yeah.
So as a screenwriter, who are some of your influences?
Do you mean shows? Or
Shows, writers, films, like who, when you, as a writer, who, to summarize, your style and, for people who haven't seen your work, like give them the kind of vibe you are.
I love Jill Soloway.
And who's that?
She's Jill is a non-binary sort of writer, producer, who wrote a show called Transparent.
Oh, yes, I know that.
Yeah, and it was about basically Jill's experience of having basically Jill had has a dad basically who comes out as trans, and yeah, wrote a show about it, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant because it's got like lots of drama and lots of heart and emotion, but it's really funny as well. So it just has all the things that I kind of like. And then Anthony Sparks is a big one for me. He was the showrunner for quite a long time on one of my all-time favorite shows, which is Queen Sugar.
Oh, yes.
And that was really the show that kind of inspired me to really write. Just because I'd never seen black people really reflected in that way, like on so many levels, like even just like the cinematography, for instance, because Ava DuVernay is the main director. But what's great about that, I could talk about the show, by the way. One of the multiple things I love, but Ava DuVernay is the main director. But the main thing around the show is they always get different directors in to direct different episodes, and they're all women, and 90% of them are women of color as well, and they're women of color that have been working in the industry for years who haven't gotten their flowers, but just what they were able to bring in terms of how the characters were shot and the lighting and the cinematography. It's very avant-garde,
yes,
the way it's shot,
yes,
but it's just beautiful, and just to see how, you know, all the characters,
melanin,
the melanin,
yes.
it just made me feel proud to be black, to be honest. And then the writing, Anthony Sparks is just incredible. He wrote really the show about, it was based on a book, but he brought a lot of his experience of his own family into it, and just the way that they kind of explore blackness and the nuances in it, the intersections of blackness. Yeah. I can't even, I got to meet Mike Flynn, just on Teams. He was also one of the writers. He was one of the writers on the show. And literally I was just gushing the whole time. I was like, I love Queen Sugar, you were amazing. Because he's the sort of guy, if I saw Mike Flynn's name, if I saw Anthony Sparks, if I saw their names come up, I always look to see who's written this episode.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I know it's going to be emotional. I know it's going to be deep. I'll be like, okay, yeah. Anthony's Mike, yeah, it's going to be a deep one. Get my tissues ready. But yeah, those are the big ones. I love Issa Rae, obviously, you know, because she created a web series.
Yes.
And I watched that web series.
Yeah.
And to see it go from that to Insecure, and then, and I'm that person who watches the documentaries. Like, she had like a YouTube channel for a production company, and she would talk about how she made it, and even seeing again the production team behind it, you know, and they're literally all black.
It's very important. It's very important because to be in those spaces and to understand, and a lot of people listening may think, well, why does it matter? It matters because when you're on a crew of 148 people and it's like, let's spot the black or the other person of color there, it can be just like, this is unacceptable. And please do not then say to us, well, maybe they're not interested, or why didn't they apply? No, it's just because people don't know how to get into it, because they're trying but nobody wants to put that you know, their foot in to like help somebody. So
exactly. And I remember, you know, seeing in an interview where Issa Rae's, you know, she's in their dressing room and she's getting her hair done, and the hairstylist is there, and she's just talking about, you know, all these different styles she's done with Issa's hair. And she was talking about how versatile black hair is, and just saying she loves black hair, and, you know, she's a black woman as well. But like, again, just having that, you know, you sort of take it for granted, but if you really look at all of the expertise and the talent that goes into making that show, and just all the black excellence, basically, you know, it really inspired me. And I was really lucky to get onto an American writers program, and it was run by Ben Corey Jones.
Oh yes, he was one of the writers on Insecure. Yes,
and
he had his own show on BET called Boomerang. Yes. That was shot amazing as well. Absolutely. I loved it. Yeah. So.
And that was amazing because, you know, it just felt closer to you.
Yes, like,
you know, like seeing all the behind the scenes and him sharing us all these stories, because he was like friends with like, you know, Lena Waithe, and
because they developed the TV
networks.
show
they
of
got on the same writers program in America before they popped, you know. So Yeah, so it was incredible because even when I got into America's Writers Program, every week there would be guest speakers, and that's how I met Mike
Amazing.
Flynn, who's one of the
Oh,
writers on
okay.
Queen
That's
Sugar.
amazing.
I met all of these amazingly talented, like black writers, producers, and even though they're all from America, again, just to see that level of excellence, it just opened the door in terms of like me just envisioning what was possible for myself.
No, I really like that. And we need to build that over here. And I feel like we are, because there's so many sense of community within this industry that we just want to root for everybody. You win, we win. Like, you get through that door, that means I can help potentially get through that door. So we just have to keep doing that. And it's great because we can look at Black Hollywood and be inspired and really influenced by what they've done. And yes, we want to go there because there's more opportunity, but we need to try and create that here as well. So it's just like a balance. It's about finding that balance because
that was the epiphany I had as well, because I think for me and a lot of black creatives, the dream is always I'm gonna go to America, hit it big, And it was so funny because after I did that program, and let me tell you, that program as well was on American time.
Oh wow.
So every Wednesday at midnight, it started at midnight. For them, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something. For us, it was midnight. So, and it was for 2 hours.
Wow.
And we had our 9 to 5 still as well.
But you know what? That's actually an advantage for you because you know what?
Yeah.
You never missed a session. Like there was no like an issue. Oh, I've got work and blah blah blah. So that was
exactly.
Even though you probably were sleep deprived, it was so worth it.
It was so worth it. And you know what's so funny? When it ended, literally sometimes it'd be 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And me and my writing partner, we'd be chatting afterwards. We'd be buzzing with ideas because it energized us, because we were meeting all these amazing people, and even the other black writers up and coming, they're all incredible and they're doing like some really big things as well now. But when I came off that program, I was like, actually, I don't want to just run to America. Good. I want to build something here, you know? Yeah. And so, because I thought it would have the opposite effect, and it didn't actually. I thought, no, actually, I'm going to stay here and build a name for myself and see what I can build here, and then maybe go to America. But,
because I get both, because I'd work in America and then come back.
Right.
Because I just feel like, because not everybody wants to live in America. I don't want to uproot my whole life and go there forever. Like, I don't want to do that, but... Yeah, we just have to keep pushing.
And you know what was interesting as well? When I was on that program, what was so fascinating was all the Americans, they were fascinated with what we're doing here. Like, all of them loved, because at the time, I May Destroy You just come out.
Oh, okay,
They loved, and not only that, they the Steve McQueen
acts. There was quite a lot of stuff going on.
One of the guys on the program, a writer, he's from Texas, and he watched Small Acts, and he was asking us about, I knew nothing about.
Of course they didn't, because they don't know nothing. So obviously they were educated on so much, because what we've been trying to tell them. But that's another conversation. That's another conversation. But so I totally understand. Because at that time there was so much great black content out there, not just educating, but was just really inspirational and entertaining as well. So that makes sense. So,
exactly.
Okay.
And I think when it comes to going to America, there's lots of people that will go to like LA or whatever to try and get seen, but you have to go there with what's special about you.
Exactly.
What's the unique
100%
vibe that you're coming with, and the stories you want to tell.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, actually, there's many fascinating stories around being black and British, and although it's not the only stories I want to tell, I think the intersections of those things and how you can explore that is something that I really want to tap into. And then maybe go.
No, I'm in the same boat because the web series that I exec produced, Tally Versus, I knew that it had universal appeal. So I made sure all of my US contacts, I was like, hey, can I get feedback on this? Yeah. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. And did this. I was like, ding, ding, ding in my head because I'm thinking now, okay, so I don't need to adapt this to American audiences. They get it. And so it's just about showing black Britishness. Because if you go to America, you're going to have to write for an American audience. You're going to have to write American characters. And I don't want to write American characters. I want to write British characters. And then you guys just deal. We watch so much American stuff and we can relate to it, we enjoy it, and stuff like that. So I totally understand that. And so this is the next step. This is the renaissance.
Yes,
You know, this is
exactly.
what's coming. So
Right.
yeah, so I like that. So yeah, so what's next for you? What you got coming up? What you can share? You know, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, this year's been so interesting for me because I kind of started off at rock bottom. I'm gonna keep it real, you know. And I was like, I need some help, man. Like, you know, and I started doing therapy. And literally after my first therapy session, literally the doors just like a dam just opened. And I was like, right, I'm going to write a short film.
Oh, great.
And it's going to be very personal. And I'm going to put a lot of myself and, you know, a lot of the things that I've been afraid to talk about and to write about. So I'm going to put that into a script, and I don't know what format it's going to come out in, but I'm going to do that, and I'm going to write a spec script to get into a writer's room for a TV show. And by March, I've done both of those scripts.
Amazing.
So I've written a short film called Fairy, which...
We shouldn't give too much about. Yes, guys, I'm working on another project. I'm very busy. But yes, but we're waiting on some news. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah, if we do get that news we want, you could come back on the show and we can talk about that whole process, you know? So we'll save that for later, guys.
Yeah.
So
So I've done those two things. I've just finished writing another pilot script. It's like a high school coming of age drama, based on my uncle's experiences of working in a school for kids who've been excluded.
Okay.
So yeah, all real stories. And yeah, I was really, really passionate about that. And I'm working on a relationship drama, a queer relationship drama that kind of explores sort of relationships in the 21st century.
Interesting.
And how messy they can be. And I think, you know, definitely, you know, me sort of now just having come out of a 7-year relationship, you know, I'm kind of exploring a lot of things just in terms of relationship dynamics and what I want to get into. So there's a lot of material.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. And I'm collaborating lastly with a really close friend of mine. She's called Selena Brown. She just got signed to United. And she wrote an amazing children's book called Nina the Green Juice, and she's so talented. We went to university together.
Oh, okay.
Did a media degree together. She's my sister, and yeah, we're gonna write a children's, a black children's TV pilot.
Okay, that's
And
what I want to see.
This is completely new. You know, I'm stepping into something. You know,
So I'm Marisha, yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Good.
yeah. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to that. Cool. So where can people find you and find Flatshare and stuff like that? Oh, James has to get out his phone because he doesn't know his social media handles. Like, can you believe it?
I know. I'm really, really bad, but bear with me.
Hurry up. We're running out of time.
All right, so you can find me on Twitter. Or my handle is at James J Barber, as in the hair shop. And then on Instagram, you can also find me. I'm very vocal there. I am JJJB, so that's 3 J's. I am JJJB.
Amazing. And where can people find Flatshare?
People can find Flatshare on YouTube. Just type in Flatshare web series and it will come up straight away.
Amazing. Well, thank you, James, for coming on the show. It was great having you. A lot of fun. So yeah, we'll have to have you back. So fingers crossed we get what we want to get. And then we can like really talk about that process. That'd be really interesting. So thanks again, guys, for listening. You can follow me all on my usual socials. You know, it's long and loads of them. So it's all in my name. So stay tuned, guys, for new episodes coming soon.